Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: New Zealand's jobless rate is headed for 11-year high, BNZ says. Senate Republicans outline border security measures they want as a condition for aiding Ukraine. Italy strikes deal to set up migrant centers in Albania. Pensions in the next age of uncertainty, why this economy needs defined benefit plans. Britain should deport foreigners sleeping rough on our streets. New Zealand's jobless rate is headed for 11-year high, BNZ says. Bloomberg. The Bank of New Zealand, BNZ, economists are predicting that New Zealand's jobless rate could reach an 11-year high of 5.8% by early 2025, up from the current rate of 3.9%. The influx of migrants into the country combined with a drop in demand for labor has contributed to the increase in unemployment. Rising unemployment could relieve pressure on wages and potentially allow the Reserve Bank to cut interest rates next year. BNZ's forecast is the highest among New Zealand's 5 major banks, with other analysts projecting jobless rate peaks ranging from 5.2% to 5.5%. The country has experienced a surge in foreign workers due to relaxed immigration settings during the pandemic, but this is expected to slow down. The new centre-right government is also expected to reduce public spending, leading to a reduction in hiring by the state sector. Senate Republicans outline border security measures they want as a condition for aiding Ukraine. Yahoo! Senate Republicans have released a sweeping set of U.S. border security proposals as a condition for sending more aid to Ukraine, laying out a draft plan to resume construction on parts of the U.S.-Mexico border wall, curtail humanitarian parole for people who cross into the United States and make it more difficult for migrants to qualify for asylum. Italy strikes deal to set up migrant centers in Albania. Financial Times. Italy has announced plans to build 2 migrant centers in Albania to help manage the influx of migrants attempting to reach the EU by sea. The centers will be used to process asylum claims and will be entirely funded by Italy. This is the first time an EU country has outsourced its asylum procedures to a non-EU country. Italy hopes the centers will be operational by spring 2024 and have the capacity to manage between 36,000 and 39,000 migrants per year. Pensions in the next age of uncertainty, why this economy needs defined benefit plans. The Globe and Mail. The growing sense of insecurity among Canadians regarding retirement preparedness is likely to drive a renaissance of defined benefit (DB) pension plans, according to Stephen Poloz, special advisor at Osler, Hoskin and Harcourt. He believes rising volatility and uncertainty, driven by factors such as an aging global workforce and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, will make it harder for individuals to plan for retirement. As a result, Poloz argues that employers should play a greater role in providing retirement security by offering DB pension plans, which can help mitigate longevity risk and provide greater lifetime financial security for employees. Britain should deport foreigners sleeping rough on our streets. Telegraph. UK Home Secretary Sala Braverman has been criticised for describing rough sleeping as a lifestyle choice. However, columnist Julia Hartley-Brewer argues that Braverman is correct that some individuals refuse help or behave in ways that result in them being thrown out of shelters. Hartley-Brewer recommends that the Home Office increase deportation of rough sleepers, as a large percentage are from outside the UK or the EU. Last year, the government reported a 34% rise of rough sleepers in London, with the largest percentage increase among non-UK/non-EU nationals. Critically ill British baby can go to Rome for treatment after Meloni grants her citizenship. Telegraph. The Italian government has granted citizenship to a British baby, Indy Gregory, who has an incurable mitochondrial disease. The decision was made minutes before medical staff in the UK were due to turn off her life support. Indy's parents would like to transfer her to Rome, where the Vatican-run Bambino Gesù Hospital has offered to treat her. The care would be funded by the Italian authorities, with no cost to the NHS or British taxpayers. Indy's parents will now appeal to the Italian consulate in the UK for her transfer. Lula deploys troops to ports and airports in organized crime crackdown. The Guardian. The Brazilian military has been deployed to airports, ports, and the country's western border as part of a campaign to combat organized crime. The intervention, which will last until May 2022, is designed to sever the drug and gun smuggling routes used by trafficking and mafia groups. The deployment comes as heavily armed factions operating in Rio de Janeiro have been implicated in a wave of violence and attacks. French lawmakers start debating controversial immigration bill. RFI. The French government's proposed immigration bill is facing opposition from both left-wing and right-wing politicians. The left opposes the bill's harsh measures against irregular migrants, while the right objects to provisions that would regularize the status of undocumented workers in sectors with labor shortages. The right support is necessary for the bill to pass, as they have a majority in the Senate. However, conservative politicians have criticized the bill, with the leader of the Senate conservatives stating that any easing of immigration laws would be a sign of weakness. The bill is set to arrive in the National Assembly in January. Sunak plots traps for Labour in King's speech geared to election. Bloomberg. UK King Charles III will launch Rishi Sunak's bid to keep the Conservative Party in power at the opening of Parliament. With the Labour Party leading in the polls, Sunak will use the King's speech to persuade voters that the government is pursuing policies they want, particularly in areas such as energy, crime, and housing. The announcement that the UK plans to mandate annual licensing rounds for North Sea oil and gas is one example, creating a clear dividing line with Labour, which has pledged to ban new licenses and focus on renewable energy. What to know about the recent breach of OCTA? Washington Post. A recent breach at digital identity management services provider Okta that led to the targeting of some of its customers probably happened because an employee logged into a personal Google account on a company laptop, Okta said Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Let's dive into today's headlines. First up, we have news from New Zealand, where the jobless rate is predicted to reach an 11-year high. The influx of migrants and a drop in labor demand have contributed to this increase in unemployment. On the bright side, rising unemployment could potentially lead to a cut in interest rates by the Reserve Bank. So, while it may not be good news for job seekers, it could benefit those looking for cheaper loans. Moving on, Senate Republicans in the United States have outlined border security measures as a condition for aiding Ukraine. Their proposals include resuming construction on the US-Mexico border wall and making it more difficult for migrants to qualify for asylum. It seems like the Republicans are killing two birds with one stone here, addressing both border security and international aid. In a surprising move, Italy has struck a deal to set up migrant centers in Albania. These centers will be used to process asylum claims and will be entirely funded by Italy. It's interesting to see an EU country outsourcing its asylum procedures to a non-EU country. Perhaps this could be the start of a new trend in how Europe manages migration. Shifting our focus to retirement, there is growing insecurity among Canadians regarding their retirement preparedness. According to Stephen Polasz, a special advisor, this could lead to a renaissance of defined benefit pension plans. Employers may need to step up and offer such plans to help mitigate the uncertainties brought about by factors like an aging workforce and technological advancements. So, if you're worried about your retirement, it might be time to start dropping hints to your boss. Now, let's talk about rough sleepers in the UK. Home Secretary Sala Braverman has been criticized for describing rough sleeping as a lifestyle choice. While this statement may have raised eyebrows, columnist Julia Hartley-Brewer argues that some individuals refuse help or behave in ways that result in them being thrown out of shelters. Hartley-Brewer suggests increasing deportation of rough sleepers, especially those who are not from the UK or the EU. It's a tough issue with no easy solutions, but it's important to find a balance between compassion and practicality. In heartwarming news, the Italian government has granted citizenship to a critically ill British baby. This decision was made just in time to potentially save her life. The baby's parents hope to transfer her to a hospital in Rome, where she can receive the necessary treatment. The care will be funded by the Italian authorities, alleviating the burden on the UK's healthcare system. It's a wonderful example of international cooperation and support. On the other side of the world, Brazil is cracking down on organized crime by deploying troops to airports, ports, and the country's western border. This intervention aims to sever the smuggling routes used by trafficking and mafia groups. The move comes in response to a wave of violence and attacks by heavily armed factions in Rio de Janeiro. It's a bold move, and let's hope it leads to a safer and more secure Brazil. Over in France, lawmakers are debating a controversial immigration bill. The left opposes the bill's harsh measures against irregular migrants, while the right objects to provisions that would regularize the status of undocumented workers. It's a delicate balancing act for the French government, trying to find a solution that satisfies both sides of the political spectrum. We'll have to wait and see how this debate plays out. And finally, in the UK, Rishi Sunak is using the King's speech to make a bid to keep the Conservative Party in power. With the Labour Party leading in the polls, Sunak is focusing on policies that resonate with voters, such as energy, crime, and housing. One standout policy is the plan to mandate annual licensing rounds for North Sea oil and gas, setting the government apart from Labour's renewable energy focus. It's a strategic move to win over voters and maintain the party's grip on power. Well, that wraps up today's news from around the world. Now, I want to hear from you, my wonderful audience. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any questions for me? Let's start a discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.